Hello, my name is Soraya, and this spring was, or this past spring, because this video is kind of a couple months in the making, I got to take a class on the history of food in Japan. And the professor presented us with a rather intriguing final project opportunity. We could talk about anything we wanted, as long as it was related to the course content, which was Japanese food. So therefore, I wanted to visit a couple of restaurants, Japanese restaurants specifically, around Chicago for research purposes. Yes. But in all seriousness, the goal was to find a place that focused on Japanese food prominent in popular culture like sushi or ramen, and another one that specialized in a dish that, in my experience, wasn't as well known, such as okonomiyaki, and to speak with the owners about their respective stores and thoughts on the globalization of Japanese foods. So I visited two restaurants, Gaijin Okonomiyaki restaurant in the Fulton Market District, which already has an interview that's up on my page. You guys should go check it out. And Kamehachi, a sushi restaurant, and the star of this video over in Old Town. So Kamehachi has lived through not one, not two, but three generations of ownership, and I got to speak with Julia, one of the current owners. And I actually asked a few questions about Kamehachi's story, so you will hear more about that from her during the interview portion of this video, because no matter how many drafts I wrote up, I really just I just couldn't do the background of the store justice like she could. But first things first, because it's for a history class, we're going to start off with a brief and simplified sushi history lesson. So, did you know that sushi doesn't mean raw fish and is actually translated to sour rice? Without the refrigeration technology we have today, they were unable to eat fish raw, and so it was usually treated with vinegar or salts or boiled. And the earliest form of sushi that we know is now called nare-zushi, which was a preservation process said to have originated in Southeast Asia and was later adopted by China and then eventually made its way over to Japan. The process, in short, used rice to preserve the fish, and then after fermentation, the rice was typically discarded and only the fish was consumed. Naminari, or naminari, meaning partially fermented, was invented during the Muromachi period. This involved a shorter fermentation period, and people began to eat rice with the fish. Then, haizushi, or fast sushi, was invented during the Edo period. It's fast because it skipped the fermentation process by using vinegar, so it could be eaten immediately. Vinegar also created a taste that was different from previous iterations. One example of haizushi is nigiri-zushi, which is said to have been perfected by Hanaya Yohei. Yohei's street stall is also credited for being the predecessor to today's sushi bars. Take that, plus time, globalization, and the continued practice of taking inspiration from ingredients available in your environment, and we now have California rolls. Just kidding. Well, we do have California rolls and a variety of other sushis, differing by ingredients, just depending on where you live. But now that our history lesson is done, it's time to roll on over to the interview. No. Okay. Sorry, bad joke. I hope you will enjoy and learn something from this conversation I had with Julia. And if you have any questions, curiosities, or other opinions you'd like to share, please drop them in the comments. And if you find this video interesting, go ahead and share it with somebody else too. I'm trying to build some traction on here, you know? So, roll film. Hope you enjoy. Okay. Well, thank you for meeting me here at August, guys. This is for a food project. I have come over to Kamehachi in Old Town to interview Julia, one of the owners.
Yeah, one of the owners.
One of the owners of Kamehachi. There's some generation to her, so she's going to tell us, or to answer some of your questions, and she's going to tell us about herself, the restaurant, and then some of her thoughts on this kind of like globalization in Japanese food. You ready to get started?
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. I'm Guilia Sindler. I'm the third generation owner of Kamehachi. Kamehachi was started by my grandmother in 1966. 1987, actually here in Old Town. It was at a different location, but my grandmother came here after the World War II. She was in one of the internment camps in Arizona. And afterwards, they came to Chicago because it was more welcoming for the Japanese community at the time in a big city. So her cousin started Kamehachi in Japan and had opened in New York and then wanted to open here in Chicago. So she found a location, a little storefront across from Second City, just up the street, and opened there. And then when she passed away, my mother and I ended up moving it to another location here in Old Town where we were for 20 years. And then we moved here, we've been here 12 years as well. So 3 times on the same street, but same generation, same family.
So a little entrepreneurial history. That's so cool. I got to see like a little bit of that story kind of like on the website, but I didn't realize it jumped from Japan to New York. Like I didn't know if you guys were kind of
apparently there still are some Kamehachis in Japan, but they're it was like a mini chain in Japan. It was more of a stand-up kind of fast food sushi concept in Japan, where you maybe walked up to the window or the counter and got it that way. So my grandmother was the first one who did. She may not have been the first Japanese restaurant here in Chicago. She was the first, or maybe not the first sushi. But she was the first one who served sushi sort of front of the house, like at a counter. She also did some tempura at the counter. There was a long counter. The chefs were there in front. So yeah.
So these questions, next question are kind of like more personal. So I'm not looking for dictionary definitions. Just like what do these kind of things mean to you? So for you, like how would you define Japanese cuisine?
That's a tough question. Well, I would define Japanese cuisine as a personal for what I grew up with and how I grew to understand the cuisine. Growing up, coming to my grandmother's, the type of food my grandmother served at the restaurant, what she and her friends might have served in the Japanese community in their homes, the type of food she ate. For instance, my grandmother never ate any cheese because that was a very foreign ingredient for Japanese people. It's not, something that they get in their diet back then every day. Japanese food to me, though, is sort of an example of the place that it came from. So Japanese food, Japan is an island made up of, surrounded by water. So the emphasis to me of Japanese cuisine is on the simplicity and the gathering of the natural elements that come from the areas around them. Food represents what's around them, the beauty, the simplicity, the natural elements, the water, the land, everything. So to me, that's what it is. Yeah.
I didn't know, that makes so much sense, because I didn't know that much about Japanese food before taking this class, which is why I kind of enjoyed it so much. But that is like a consistent thing that comes up, like how much like in Japanese history they really were like relying on the land, and even with like globalization now that seems to be a standard, they still kind of keep us like we use what we have, because that's kind of like how they represent themselves through the food. And I just think that's like so cool, especially in a world where it's like like sauces, spices, and then it's like, well, what if we can just use let's just work together rather than having to add so much extra. So I think I really do appreciate like that sense of like Japanese cuisine quite a bit. Okay, so you've already mentioned that you were like introduced to Japanese cuisine like via family. So
and via a Japanese restaurant in a better way. I just order off the menu. Growing up,
So I guess what was like a staple for you growing up, or what is like your favorite like Japanese dish?
Well, my brother and I always loved tempura. It was something, he doesn't like a delicately crispy fry. We used to like the sweet potatoes and the onions were our favorite. So I also enjoyed just being exposed to the different. When I was growing up, Asian food and Japanese food has such a distinct sort of salty and sweet sort of flavor that you can't get in any other food that I grew up with. I grew up in a suburb outside of Washington, D.C. So it's something that is kind of craveable. So back then, that type of profile, soy, salty, sweet profile was something that you couldn't really get anywhere else when I was growing up. So that was what my brother and I used to crave. Tempura, the dipping sauce for the tempura, and of course, the other dishes like the kind of home style dishes that my grandmother made. They're sort of comfort foods too. So that's what I like.
Even the other restaurant I went to also there was so much like family inspiration to a lot of his like introductory answers. So it's so nice to see like all like makes it, I don't know, just makes me feel warm inside to see all that kind of pull together. So given people have many choices in life when it comes to careers and things, and so I understand that like this was kind of like a passed down family business. So like what made you want to stay involved with Japanese cuisine like outside like in a professional sense and not just like personally?
So it's interesting. I went to school for something completely different. I worked in restaurants outside my grandmother's to put myself through college and whatnot. I never actually thought that I would be in this business, but in fact, I have an older brother, and my grandmother used to just assume that my brother was going to take over, which is interesting. But I kind of felt the calling just from a family sense that my grandmother worked her story and her work for so long in the community here that when she passed away, I just sort of jumped at the opportunity to keep her legacy going. That's really what my mom and I sort of endeavored to do. We endeavored to just keep what she started in the community, and the success, they say sometimes you succeed at what you really put your love into. It's an example of that.
I guess then the next question would be, is there any like specific tradition that Kamehachi has like stayed true to since opening, or maybe whether opening in Japan or opening in America, whichever?
Tradition, well, sushi is still our specialty. So my grandmother sort of introduced sushi to many people here in Chicago, because at the time it was popular on the coast, like New York and California, and where trends seemed to hit the Midwest a little bit later than some of those. So she was fortunate to be across from Second City, so that brought celebrities in to that area, and being this little mom and pop little sushi bar place, people started to try it. So I think that sushi is the thing that we're still relatively new for. Yeah.
Good trendsetter.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
A lot of people tried their first sushi, and then the children, the grandchildren, people will bring their parents. It's really fun when you see a child bringing their grandparents back, and the child's eating sushi, and the grandparents have never had it before. But yeah, people becoming introduced to a new food type that at the time many people had never tried.
Okay, so then I guess on the note, because you've kind of mentioned like Second City a lot, so I know that Old Town is like the original like Kamehachi location, and you guys now have another one. And obviously, we're here at the Old Town one, just to clarify today, because I wanted to get a vibe for the kind of like where the original one came from. So like, what is Second City? Just to give a description.
Well, Second City is a comedy improv. It's a theater where many celebrities have gotten their start in comedy and then gone on to TV and movies and whatnot. So it has connections to Canada and to the East Coast and New York and to the West Coast too. So I guess it's just in terms of it being so, Kamehachi being so close to it. My grandmother used to be friendly with a lot of the actors, and back in the day, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, who were part of that comedy community, used to come in, and many of the other actors, Chris Farley and other people, stop in between the shows for a quick bite. And then Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi also had a private club during the era back next door in the alley, so it was kind of a famous late night place. So many celebrities came by.
So this is kind of like an off the books question, but is that what inspired like the comedy kind of show Connection that's here currently, or is that like completely separate?
No, it's completely separate.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that the Second City Club brought many celebrities to the area that just happened to overflow into the area and to my grandmother's restaurant. Yeah.
Well, you're like, like all these questions about like they're covered. So I'll still ask them because I want to see if there's anything you maybe have to expand on it.
Okay.
But you kind of mentioned like how the restaurant got its start with interacting with the community and kind of introducing sushi to like a lot of people, especially kind of like on the front end and not just having it as like a random like snack where you don't really see how everything's prepped in front of you. Are there any other like ways that you feel like Kamehachi has influenced the surrounding community or has been influenced by the community since like starting?
So we've been doing it a long time. So I would say that, you know, when we first started, we were one of the very few a small community of restaurants that started serving Japanese cuisine back in the 90s or 80s and 90s. And now I would say the difference is that the proliferation of sushi restaurants, there's one in every neighborhood, there's one in every corner, you get sushi in the grocery store. That's all new from the time that, you know, my grandmother started to the time my mom and I started. That's a good thing. It's in that it brings the cuisine to more people, and more people are familiar with it. It becomes like a staple now. You get it all the time. But, you know, with that, you know, just like Italian food became very popular, you know, spaghetti and meatballs, that's not really the core of true Japanese food. There's such a wide range of Japanese cuisines for different styles. If you go to Japan, the cuisine in the north, the cuisine in the south, you know, the type of cuisine that is elevated, the type of cuisine that's eaten at home every day, it's very different. Yeah. So I would say there's good that comes with that. The more people that know about it, obviously, the more people enjoy the cuisine and become fans of it. Is better for all of us in the long run. Yeah.
And then I'm gonna drop some spoilers because earlier I heard that you guys were catering for a Beyonce show coming up. So outside of that, like what has been like the community or like connection with Kamehachi and the greater Chicago community? I also heard that you guys did an event last night for something.
We did an event for the Japanese community for the new consul general here in Japan. We have deep ties to the Japanese community because of the generations of people who knew my family, and we try to stay close, and we even post-COVID have been trying to do more with interacting with the Japanese community now and fostering relationships and bringing Japanese culture to the Chicago people and trying to strengthen that bond. We also, our connection is that we've been doing it a long time, so a lot of people in the community maybe had their first sushi here, and we're still around, which means that we're a consistent sort of time-honored name in the Japanese food community. Our philosophy is we don't grandstand we don't capitalize in this world of social media. We don't try to use those celebrity connections or connections for it, because we want to be a place where people are protected if they want that as well. And even back before, we became a place where it's more important to us that we have those people who come and enjoy our food than we do to use that to say, like, look who's eating here. If that makes sense. So, yeah.
Like the vibe community that's kind of cool. And you guys are we're good at it, but we got it on our own.
So, we just try to stay true to who we are and what we've been, and we hope that makes a difference in the community. Yeah.
So then, in that case, because you mentioned like connections to the Japanese community, especially because, like you said, unfortunately, internment camps, World War II,
right?
Chicago was a much friendlier city post all that compared to a lot of other places in the U.S. So, it was the Japanese, I imagine the Japanese community was probably prominent when your grandmother established this. Is it still kind of like the same, or has it changed?
No, unfortunately, and that's why I think many of us are trying to foster these connections in Chicago and with the Japanese community. So when my grandmother settled here, there still is the Midwest Buddhist Temple, which is just a few blocks from here. And because of that, there was a very strong pocket of Japanese community right here in Old Town. many of those elders and some of that generation has passed, and then many of the Japanese community now has moved out to the suburbs, specifically like Arlington Heights and some of those other suburbs where there's a larger pocket of the Japanese community now. So I was fortunate to be able to experience that here in Old Town in the middle of the Chicago, thriving Chicago city. But now I hear from many other Japanese community members that everyone is so spread out now, and the community is a lot more splintered than it was back then. But there still are ways for the community to come together in different festivals or events or different things. If you look for it, you can see these different events where the Japanese community supports.
Yeah, you sure. Yeah. It's so nice to see it, yeah. It's always kind of sad when you just see, like, I don't know, especially like when things like evolve and change, especially when you get things like industrialization and kind of like, unfortunately in some areas, gentrification, kind of like a separation of a lot of communities. But I'm glad to hear that there has been ways, that there's still like ways in Chicago for people to still find that.
Yeah, and as a sort of an homage to what my grandmother's community here was in Old Town when they all lived together. The Midwest Buddhist Temple still does a festival every August. It's called Ginza Holiday, and the tradition is that a lot of the Japanese elders will come together and they'll cook their famous chicken teriyaki recipe. You have to pre-order now because it sells out so much. But they do demonstrations, and they bring different arts and crafts, and they do demonstrations, martial arts demonstrations, and dancing and music and everything. So I've been going to that since I was a kid. So every now and then I try to go back to relive that. So, and the same chicken teriyaki recipe, the teriyaki recipe, it's so great to see that they still grill it out there, the same elder people in the community, and then now the younger people getting involved too. Yeah.
That sounds like so much fun. I wish I was in Chicago in August. Like, I'm always like, what
in
can
August?
I do?
Yeah,
because I always go home for the summer, so I don't come back till September. And so I'm like, I feel like I miss so much. Like, proof that you miss a lot when you're not in Chicago over the summer.
It's funny to do if you find it.
It's new. Okay, maybe I'll have to come back post graduation just for that. Sounds like fun. Okay. So you kind of touched on some of these topics a little bit. We're going to start talking about the globalization of Japanese food now. What comes to mind when you hear globalization of Japanese food?
I think for me, the proliferation of restaurants and other cuisines that are incorporating Japanese foods and flavors into their cuisines. So globalization, for me, what I've seen, there'll be, I call them almost like mashups, I guess, if that's the term. You have like Latin food and Japanese food. You have, other cuisines, bringing elements in, other restaurants that may not say they're strictly Japanese restaurants, but if you look at their menu, their basis of many of their dishes are Japanese flavor or ingredient based. So to me, that means that Japanese food is now finding its way into all restaurants. If you go into an American restaurant, you're likely to find some kind of raw tuna tartare, some tuna poke, tuna, there's tuna on every menu now, where it didn't used to be that way. There's raw products on many menus. There's many steakhouses doing sushi on their menu too. Seafood restaurants have a very strong Japanese flavors. Miso-based marinades on many of the fish marinades. Different ingredients that have found their way into many other cuisines. To me, that means that that's what it means to me. So you can find the Japanese influence on many other menus and cuisines.
Yeah, that is a big thing. I feel like I definitely started noticing things like that, like especially like 2020 onwards. It's like even like some of my local grocery stores, they did not have like they had like the refrigerators where like they make the sushi fresh, but it kind of like sits there until somebody buys it. So it was very new to me, even just like 5 years ago, to be like, oh, there's sushi in my local grocery store now. That's kind of interesting. I have access to it, and then so it's fun. But I have my own personal mixed feelings about like mashups, as you call them, because I found that whenever I want a specific dish, there is still like a clear like what a restaurant can be better at. But I do think it's interesting that it's like just different cultural foods have come such a long way in terms of globalization that we can even, I guess, have the privilege, I guess, to say, to even have these mashups to see how people are creative enough to work them together. So yeah, I don't know. I like learning about globalization stuff. So we're like my favorite breach of the questions. So like kind of like on the note, like I want to say you mentioned earlier, or we've talked about sushi a lot because like sushi is one of the big ones. If people hear Japanese food and they're not familiar with traditional dishes, like they're like, oh, sushi and ramen are kind of like really big. So in your opinion, or if you have like academic knowledge, like whichever it's coming from, what contributes to like certain dishes becoming more recognizable than others?
I've been in this business a long time. I can't tell you what some people may enjoy eating and what becomes popular and what doesn't. There is no formula, and sometimes the things that we think we want to share with the public ends up telling you what they want to eat in the end when you have a restaurant. So I can tell you that a lot of the things that become pop that are ordered the most are maybe not the most authentic dishes, but you have to kind of cater to what your customer wants. So we recently, after a long period of time, sometimes we'll put an item on the menu which we feel like is popular but isn't necessarily true to Japanese roots. So we have a spicy tuna crispy rice that we put on the menu, which is, was probably developed here in America, I'm sure. You fry the sushi rice and then you top it with some raw sushi type of ingredients, and then you put a bunch of sauce on the top, and spicy mayonnaise and sweet like soy sauce or whatever, and everybody who's tried it here and ordered it is like one of our most, we put it on maybe 2 months ago. It's one of our most highest order items all the time. So, I mean, it does taste good. It's tasty, it's good. But if you want to go back and say, like, what relevance does it have to Japanese cuisine? It's just, it tastes good. And it takes elements of, it takes the Japanese ingredients, it puts together in a way that's very pleasing to the American palate. So, that's an example, I guess.
No, that makes sense. I'm going to keep kind of going off that previous question, but adding in like social media, because especially like as it develops more and more, we find like more like platforms where people are able to like share and disperse like various kinds of information. Even learning about like cuisine and various cultures just becomes more accessible to like people around the world. So like in terms of like social media and like globalization, like, what do you think is like the result, or how do you think this affects, there you go, I apologize, how do you think this like affects the preservation of like traditional foods and culture?
Well, I think it's great. Social media is great because you can also see trends from Japan. Things, you can see some very cool clips of maybe what they're doing in other countries or overseas, which is always great. I mean, you have the whole world to see what they're doing across the world. Social media wise though, I mean, the thing is you can't actually taste it on social media. So it may look great and it may look cool, but you're missing a huge part of it. Like, you can have a cool story and it could look great on camera and it could have this, this great, process and everything, but you're missing the thing is if it doesn't taste good, people aren't gonna really like it. So it may be good for the moment because it looks good on camera or because it looks really cool, but ultimately, from a business point of view, for me, is that something they're either going to continue to order price point because of the taste, because of maybe is it travel over their house so they can order it for carry out? Like, some things are just great because it looks good, it's flaming, or it's different things on camera. Yeah, there's flaming sushi, but you can't necessarily taste that. So social media is great because I think it exposes people to really cool things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to see. And for us too, we study as well because we need to know what other places are doing, where the trends are going as well, so that we can decide if it's right for our restaurant and for our customers. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It also leads into my next question. Okay. So in terms of like food trends, social media, or just like from whatever you know in the business, either way, are there any like trends that you are excited about or maybe concerned about? No, I can't. I don't. I'm not on social media a lot, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. But some of my younger staff or my children are. I see some very cool things that are being done. I'll look at some of them and go, oh, that looks so cool, maybe we should try that. From a bad point of view, obviously I don't want people to try anything dangerous. But, there is a concern, I guess, about sushi
becoming more popular and people trying to eat that within their homes and not storing the fish properly. I guess my concern in general about sushi getting more popular is the more and more restaurants that are doing it, I think is a good thing, as I mentioned before. But if one of those places were to do something, not store something properly, get some really bad press, it would affect all of us in the industry. So that's my concern, is that I don't have any control over the way that other Japanese restaurants or people are controlling the product. So ultimately we all have to be sourcing, preparing, storing, and serving the freshest, because one bad thing will affect all of us negatively. So that's my concern.
Even like quality wise, especially if it's hard to determine quality, because when I was looking up places to go to, it was so hard to find like a non-sushi place. I was like, Japanese cuisine in Chicago, and it was like just a bunch of sushi places, and I was like, I know I don't know Japanese like traditional dishes that well, but I also know there's more than just sushi and like ramen available. So I think it's very I think it's just so interesting that they are also so prevalent that if you're not like actively studying the culture, it's just like, this is Japanese.
So pizza and sushi are the two #1 ordered things on DoorDash or any other things. I suppose for me personally, I think it comes down to the fact that you can't really make pizza or sushi in your home very easily. So those are two things, if you go to the grocery store, they're not easily made. Unless you have a pizza oven, I think you can't really do yourself. So I think, that makes it so that people want that they'll make sushi the most popular part because it's so well ordered. And I'm going to go back to the business point of view as well. I think so many Japanese restaurants or Chinese restaurants, Thai restaurants, other restaurants, American restaurants, steak restaurants are adding sushi to the menu because it sells. And that's really, you got cuisine and you have business. It sells, and so I think it's finding its way onto the menus because right now that's what people want and that's what people will order. So it's great as long as people still love the trend and they don't get sick of eating it, then I think it'll be good and people will continue to add it to the menu. But like you mentioned, there are so many other things. So ramen is making, a big surge right now in terms of Japanese food. Ramen is becoming very popular. There's also, if you go to outside of Chicago and New York, or even on the West Coast, there's more experimentation in other types of Japanese food there. In New York, there's a very famous Michelin star tempura restaurant that just does tempura alone. So I don't think that, but they're focused on tempura as a cuisine. There's many other kinds of Japanese cuisine. I hope people continue to explore them, and maybe it'll be the next trend.
That's why I look at exploring restaurants, which is why I was really excited to do this podcast. I was like, I want to hear what it's like from the business side, from the more personal side. So not at the end yet, but thank you again for agreeing to do this. Of course. I'm loving this conversation so much. Okay, so next up, are there any misconceptions about Japanese cuisine that you've heard or maybe you've personally frequently encountered?
I think people need to appreciate that our sushi is, and most of the time when you're ordering sushi, it's made to order. If you think about any busy restaurant, there's a lot of modifications. Sushi is almost like a build your own on the menu for most people. So there is an expectation, with allergies and food preferences and everything, and the way people have learned to like their rolls, whether they've eaten it to other places. And people will come in, and it could be a busy Friday night, and there's 10 modifications on every single roll. I want it inside out, but I don't want the avocado, and I don't want sesame seeds, and put extra instead of this, put this. So it's almost like sushi's become a build your own, and people need to understand it takes time because every one of those rolls is being made by a chef individually. It's very difficult to try to expedite that on a busy night and get every single ingredient. You're talking about maybe sometimes 5 or 6 different ingredients that you're specializing and modifying specifically for that person. So when it hits their table and they've ordered it a special way, I would just like to urge people to realize that if you have to wait 30 minutes, sometimes it takes 30 minutes or longer for chefs to make your sushi. It's not something, I think people think from getting it in the grocery store that it's a very simple item, and it's really not. Chefs start making the rice. It's all made individually, prepared from every ingredient in Japanese food. There are a lot of different sauces. There are a lot of different ingredients that have to be made every single day. The preparation for sushi starts in the very morning and before the customers even come in the door. And so between that, all the sauces being prepared the right way up to the time that they're individually making the sushi, and I'm focusing just on sushi, but this means also the other dishes. The other dishes have a sauce for this type of food, a sauce for this dish. Sometimes it's all made. There's like 10 zillion different sauces that are made in the kitchen, and those all are made specifically for those dishes. When Japanese food comes to your table, a lot of times there's a lot of supporting dishes that come with it. It's meant to be experienced with this way. This is meant to be met with this side, and mix this with the sauce and eat it this way. So I think people need to understand that Japanese food is not something that can be rushed.
I feel like that's definitely one of like the effects of like globalization, or maybe more specifically like westernization, because like in America it's very like common. Like, you go to a restaurant like, oh, I have allergies, I have this restriction, I have this like this, that, and the other, and it's like, okay, like, so we accommodate that. So I personally, like, whenever I watch food vlogs, that is one of the main things for the people who are in Japan. They're like, guys, don't expect like the American, don't expect this fast service, don't expect like the American, oh, we'll accommodate everything you want for this dish. It's like, they're gonna serve it as they put it on their menu. So I want, especially because as we talked about, like, ingredients are very important in Japanese cuisine, because it really matters how they each like pair together, like the simplicity. And so I think that's, I guess you could say, one of like maybe the negative effects, that the customization is like not the point of sushi, but it's like when it's in America, because of us being used to like customizing our dishes, it's become like one of the effects for some certain sushi restaurants to like apply to their dishes. So moving on to the next question. I'll ask anyways. We've kind of had like a nice little conversation about this, but in case you have anything else to add to it, how do you think restaurants like Kamehachi help educate people about authentic Japanese food?
I think if you, it's like many of our customers and the kids and people who first try Japanese food here, I think everybody has their favorite Japanese food profile.
Yeah.
But what I've heard from our customers, so like if you come here and you get used to Kamehachi's spicy mayonnaise, it's going to taste different. So then you go to another restaurant, their spicy mayonnaise has a little bit different profile. So I think ours are more the recipes that we've been using for years. So I think they come from authentic roots, from using true Japanese ingredients. Maybe there's many different things. Like, for instance, you can use some restaurants use regular American mayonnaise, or you can use the Japanese mayonnaise. So we use the Japanese Kippy mayonnaise because we think that tiny little nuance of what it adds is what is like the special sauce for it in a way. So we've had our recipes for a long time, so we try to stay true to that. We try to educate people. Back when we first opened, we had a dish called Sushi 101, which was very easy sushi things for people who wanted to try it for the first time. You would get a cucumber roll, and then you try a little tuna. So you kind of move people into that, and if they like that, then they can move on to the next thing, and pretty soon they're eating uni.
Yeah. That's so cool.
So,
a little dining experience.
Yeah.
So, how do you see the future of Kamehachi and or Japanese cuisine in Chicago and beyond?
So I think there's a place for every restaurant has a little bit different menu, a little bit take on Japanese food. And I think as long as Japanese and Asian food is still a very strong thing for restaurants, a sector which I believe it is still continues to be growing, I think more and more Japanese and Asian flavored restaurants will keep opening, and I think more and more Chicagoans and people will be exposed to it. I think it's a good thing. So, and we'll keep developing our menu, and menus will keep changing to meet those needs as well. So,
Sounds like a great project.
I hope so. Yeah.
I like it. Okay, we've done our serious world-thinking questions. Now
Okay.
time for we're going back to some more fun personal ones. What's your favorite story or memory involving Kamehachi?
Well, I would say that back in the heyday when we had our second floor late night sushi lounge at the time, it was the right time. It was the right time in Chicago for that to become popular, and we had many late night celebrity visits during that time from Dennis Rodman and his crew, and those were always fun times because during that time, the Bulls were so world class. Such Michael Jordan and all that he brought to the city at that time was a very exciting time in Chicago and in sports in general. So I would say that that time for me and my staff was an exciting time in general. And if you see the Chicago Bulls Last Dance special that they put on there, they cover, I think episode 3 is all about Dennis Rodman and his what he did for the city. He would sometimes start at Kamehachi and then he'd start his night there, and then have 3 or 4 different places after that. But in the Last Dance special, there is some footage of him coming into our old restaurant and him with Carmen Electra up on the second floor in the second floor late night banquet. So when I see that snippet for just a few seconds, it reminds me of that era and that time. And that was, not only a great time for us as Kamehachi, but also a great time just for the city in general, in terms of that era and people who remember that era of Chicago late night and Chicago restaurants and Chicago Bulls. Yeah.
That sounds like so much fun. Whenever I hear throwback stories, I'm always like, what if I was born just a couple decades sooner? Because people make it, yes, there was some rough times, but there's so many fun aspects.
It was different. There wasn't any social media back then.
True.
So,
okay.
So there's good and bad. But it was just a different time. It was a different era.
Oh, my questions. Oh, I found them. Sorry. Are there any off-menu items or hidden gems that you would recommend or that regular customers love?
We have a lot of customers who've been coming with us a long time. So they will always ask sometimes if they have a favorite dish that's not on the menu anymore. Also, some of the more authentic Japanese dishes. Well, first of all, Kamehachi, we have a very large menu.
Yeah.
It's very large, and every time we try to take something off, and somebody will say oh, why did you take that off? So we try to cater everybody, but there are still some more traditional Japanese dishes that we used to have. If someone were to come in and order it, we could make it just because we have the stock, we have the ingredients in the kitchen, and because we have the chefs who've been making our food for a long time and menus for a long time, it's likely that they might be able to make it for them. So it might not be a very popular dish with American people, but if a Japanese person were to come in and request something, it's likely that we might be able to make it. So that's sort of a secret thing, I guess. If you were to come in and ask for your favorite Japanese dish that you might have had somewhere else, either you might be able to call up and ask if it's possible that we can make it ahead of time, or if you came and you asked, can they make it? It's possible they might be able to accommodate you. So,
is there, in that case, is there a menu item? Is there a favorite? Do you have a favorite menu item that you recommending people as they ask?
Well, in that vein, I would say, from that authenticity standpoint, it was when I was a kid, I used to like a very simple Japanese dish called yudofu. It's basically just tofu boiled in a simple stock with green onion and some ponzu sauce on the side. And I've had some American customers that had tried it at some point that still say they remember it. So it's just those flavor profiles that I mentioned before, just the simple stocks, the taste of the fish stock or the taste of that sauce or whatever makes an impression on people, I guess.
So what? Okay, then what? That was your favorite. That sounds really good. I love a good miso.
Yeah.
A good soup.
Yeah.
So what Kamehachi dish would you recommend to someone who's never tried Japanese food before?
I would say that, much like I said, Sushi 101, I think their servers can guide them now. If they wanted to try sushi for the first time, I think, my staff could help guide them to something that's easy and they can just sort of ease into it. I would say, there's some of the old standards that have been around forever from my grandmother's time to now have proven that they're staples that have been enjoyed by the Japanese community and the American people too. Things like gomai spinach. People think it's the peanut sauce. It has no peanut butter in it, but it tastes like something familiar to American people.
Yeah.
So it's a sesame based, but gomai is a good sort of authentic, but let's try that one. Tempura is always a good one. So the sushi, the easygoing sushi, where you ease people into maybe a cucumber roll or like a simple tuna roll. You can add some American sauce, add some spicy mayonnaise to anything, and it tastes really good. So I would say, there's some things that, definitely, our menu's so large, as I mentioned, that, there's something that everybody can sort of try.
And then, so in that case, what do you, actually word this right, what do you hope that your guests take away from their experience at Kamehachi?
Well, I hope that they're either coming back and having the consistent flavors and dishes that they're used to, that have come to be their favorite flavors and favorite dishes that they come to want to crave over and over again. But I also think, if they're just coming in and trying Kamehachi for the first time, I hope that it stands up to maybe where they've had Japanese food before. Of course, stands up and maybe surpasses what they expected and says, wow, that's some of the best Japanese food that I've had, either from a familiarity standpoint or maybe because, they tried something new that they hadn't tried before.
Based on the story and the fact that I'm so excited to eat here after this, I bet you guys we're gonna prove that this experience is true. Just wait for it. Just wait for it. Okay, and then this is our final question of the interview. Is there anything that you would like to say to people who are considering visiting Kamehachi, or to someone who has not yet discovered your restaurant?
Just to understand the history of this particular restaurant, that it is Japanese owned, generationally, multi-generation Japanese owned restaurant, and that hopefully they'll appreciate, as I mentioned, the time not only in how long the family's been doing this, but also the time that it takes to prepare the food before it hits the table. As I alluded to before, Japanese food, it's very simple, but it's very complicated.
Yeah.
In its process. So that's what I hope.
You guys heard it from the businesswoman herself. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Guys, it's now time to eat.
All right, that was the interview. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, after the interview, I did get some good eats, and I went home full and with some leftovers. I kind of splurged that day. I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, this was the second iteration of not second iteration. This is like the second interview project I've ever done, and like I said, it's for a history project and both these related to food. But is this something that you would like to see more of? Like, I would love an excuse to go eat at more restaurants if you guys want to see that, or if you guys want to see me attempt to interview more people. Just let me know in the comments. And share, or maybe just in general, share some ideas of topics that I should discuss with other restaurants, or maybe business owners, or honestly just any other video idea you guys think will be cool. But that's it, and thank you guys for watching the interview, and thank you again to Kamehachi for helping me out with this project, and to Julia for being the one that I was able to interview with, as well as all of the servers who kind of helped me film and walk through the menu and kind of all those things. This video wouldn't have been possible without you, so thank you guys all too. Anyways, Stay blessed, my friends, and I can't see you, but you will see me in the next video. Bye!